Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Spurs Up Show presented by the Armchair All-Americans. This is officially episode 48, a bonus podcast, if you will, special episode that we have with a very, very special guest. No Thomas Floyd today, but like I said, going to get to our special guest in just a second. Before we do that, be sure to go online. If you haven't done so yet, not sure what you're doing yet, the best Gamecocks podcast on the internet, be sure to go online, rate, subscribe, share, and download the Spurs Up Show, iTunes, the Stitcher app. Wherever you consume your media, where you can consume your podcast, be sure to check us out there. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, Twitter at ArmchairSCar. It's going to be at ArmchairSCAR. We're also on Instagram at ArmchairSCarolina. And, of course, again, like I mentioned, this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair All-Americans. Please be sure to go check us out on ArmchairAllAmericans.com for all your latest breaking Gamecock news and coverage there. Like I mentioned, we do have a very, very special guest, as I was talking a little bit before the show. We give a lot of shine, a lot of love, if you will, to the main sports, baseball, football, basketball. But something that I know is dear to my heart, has been in the limelight a little bit, is golf. So we've got the Gamecocks men heads golf coach, Bill McDonald, on the show. Bill, again, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dive into, obviously, some Gamecocks golf, kind of a little bit more about you, obviously just kind of the life of a college golf coach. But, I want to start with what happened a couple of weeks ago with our country's national championship, if you will, with the U.S. Open that was played at Shinnecock Hills. I guess the first question I have that a lot of people have had, and, it's been discussed a ton since it happened, but what on earth was Phil Mickelson thinking when he hit the ball while it was moving on the 11th hole at Shinnecock?
Oh, man. I'm not sure I really want to know. I mean, I think we've all been that frustrated playing golf where you kind of lose your mind. It was really a shame to see it. It overshadowed some great golf by Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson. It was overall really an interesting week. I think the golf course was on Saturday. It was really a shame. It was the way it was set up. The USGA sort of lost it, and I think what you saw with Mickelson was a combination of some frustration. Obviously, he was well over par at that point and out of the championship, and I think he blacked out maybe a little bit, got a little ticked off, and like we all can. And then I think what was disappointing for me was his reaction, in the sense that he wasn't that apologetic about it. He was claiming that he was trying to use the rules and me, and I think a lot of golf fans.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think for sure that a lot of amateur golfers have been there, but yeah, really, really weird, just kind of set of circumstances. I know, like you said, he wasn't really apologetic after the round, but a couple of days later, I think maybe came to his senses, probably got a little bit of, some wiser words and cooler heads prevailing in his ear. And obviously, I think he realized it was the smart thing to do to apologize. But, you mentioned something really interesting about that golf tournament. The USGA losing control of Shinnecock. We obviously saw, I think most of us saw the interview that Zach Johnson had when he said that directly. Saw some tweets from some former Gamecock golfers, Wesley Bryan and Kyle Thompson. A lot of golfers really on social media kind of voicing their opinions on it. Was that your opinion as well, that the USGA sort of failed again at Shinnecock, or do you think it was just on Saturday?
I think you can go back quite a few years and say the USGA has failed us for quite a number of years now. I was fortunate enough to be at Chambers Bay 3 years ago with some of our Gamecocks, Mark Silvers and Matt Neesmith, and that place was nothing but a joke. And then I was at Oakmont with Ryan Stackler, one of our players, and it bordered on that as well. I think that to me, it's a shame that they're taking some great golf courses and they're trying to put their stamp on it and protect par, which I can understand some of that, but at the same time, it's been pretty obvious to me that they don't really let Mother Nature run its course. If they have an opportunity to dry out a golf course and make it extreme, they take advantage of that. And I think you saw that in the U.S. Open this year, certainly with the Tony Finau and oh gosh, I'm blanking out here a little bit. The guy who the two guys that were in the final group on Sunday played 5 or 6 hours earlier on Saturday, and I think you saw it with Tommy Fleetwood shooting 63 on Sunday, a few hours before the leaders. I mean, that to me tells me a golf course is out of control and is only good in the morning when there's some moisture.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it was funny. There were a lot of people that really enjoyed the chaos and thought, well, finally professional golfers get to see the kind of courses, I guess, that maybe like sort of like dog tracks that regular golfers play on. But the way I kind of worded it to some people that I'm friends with is that, I don't know, as someone that plays golf, a pretty good bit and that follows the game and has played my entire life, like I don't know, in my opinion, with the USGA and the US Open, what they try to do with that golf tournament, to me, I don't need to see the best in the world struggle as badly as they do to realize how hard the game is. I mean, it's still, everyone knows how hard golf is, whether they shoot 10 over or 10 under, in my opinion. So I do agree they've gone a little bit over the top, especially with Shinnecock. You'd think after 2004 they would have kind of learned their lesson, but yeah, Saturday was that Saturday was I think a failure by the USGA for sure. But let's move into college golf. Obviously, South Carolina Gamecocks. First thing I want to talk about your new facility. Talk a little bit about you guys have a beautiful brand new facility. I think right by Williams-Brice Stadium, behind their practice facility. Just talk about the new facility, kind of what it means for you guys in the program.
Well, it's I actually just left there with my son. We've got a retention pond in the back of it that we got a few fish in. Actually, I don't know how they got there, but my son and I like going back there in the evenings and fishing. It's technically it's the Husky Dietrich golf practice facility. We call it the cockpit. It's just down the hill from the new football indoor and football operations center going up. It's an amazing piece of property. It really I'm starting my 13th year here as a coach. So I was the first 10 years that I was here, we obviously didn't have anything like it. It's so close to campus. You can see Willie B in the distance. You can, be down there for a football game and hit a few balls and then walk up the hill to the game. And that's just the atmosphere of it. The actual practical aspect of it is that our players, the way it's designed, it's really designed for players, where the green complexes are all three of the major green complexes are very, very different. They're designed to challenge the players with how we can tuck pins and we flash bunkers up so that it replicates what we see in tournaments. It's immaculate in its condition. I think it's just an incredible place for our players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned as well, you've been in, coaching college golf for a pretty long time now. What's kind of a typical day for you as a college golf coach? And I'm sure it differentiates between when you're in season and out of season. How much does it differentiate for you?
Well, this time of year, the main focus is on recruiting. We're doing a lot of that. And then a day in the life, more or less, is during the week when the kids are in school. We have a combination of workouts and practice and qualifying and whatever we need to do. Obviously, traveling to tournaments, we play 4 to 5 events in the fall. A lot of people don't realize golf is a year-round sport in college. So we actually play 4 or 5 events in the fall and then 5 or 6 in the spring before we have what we call our championship segment with regionals and hopefully NCAA. So it's basically a 12-month a year job. It has many aspects to it. I love the fact that I always tell people that the kids make my schedule. You don't ever know what's going on. A kid might have an issue academically or want to work on their game or maybe want to talk about, something going on in their life. So it always has something unique and different going on. And it's a real challenge for me to try to relate to 10 or 11 different players. They're all have, golf. We're playing an individual sport, but with a team atmosphere. So as a coach, you're just challenged to try to create that unique environment where they can excel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to ask one thing I've always been very, very interested in. As far as, like you said, the biggest challenge is probably, and I can definitely relate to this, is kind of managing a bunch of different personalities. I think that would probably be the biggest thing. How much of your job would you say is, breaking down the golf swing, breaking down mechanics for players versus more so keeping them all in a good mental state? Because obviously, relating back to what Phil Mickelson did, golf is a game that can beat you down if you let it. How much of your game, again, is technical versus mental?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, sometimes improving the technical helps the mental for sure. If you
Right.
start hitting the ball better, you feel pretty good about yourself. And and it's a chicken or egg type thing. I'd say my background is actually in instruction. I've been a PGA member for a long time. I was a teaching pro before I got into coaching college golf. So I would say, every team is a little bit different. I've had some teams where I work with a lot of the players, and I've had other teams where I'm more of what I would say a game manager or tournament manager, where I'm just trying to help them prepare for events. But there's no doubt that if you don't have, we get a lot of kids that come in. They're obviously the best player at their high school, the best player in the area. They come in, now they're around 9 or 10 other guys that are really good, and so we try to create a really competitive atmosphere that brings the best out of everyone. But that doesn't always happen. I mean, golf's a brutal sport, and you have to be very tough mentally to handle it. So, I try to work a lot with them on just how to prepare for daily life in general. I mean, how are you going to handle? Can you keep your dorm room clean? Can you get to workouts on time? Can you get to your class? I mean, all the things that you expect, high level college athletes to do, but it really is a challenge. And I'd say for the most part, we've had an incredible group of kids through very supportively. The key mix is having good kids with character and having parents that have your back when you have to apply the foot a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of moves us into our next point as well. You talked a lot about recruiting, and I'm sure with golf, like any other sport, any other collegiate sport, recruiting is going to be kind of your lifeblood, of your program. Talk a little about, because, it's really interesting. I'm actually from North Augusta, South Carolina, was surrounded, there are some really good golf programs around that area, with USC Aiken being one, whose sister school of South Carolina, and then Augusta University, where Patrick Reed played his college golf. Talk about just kind of how the recruiting process works, and how do you break up your focus between, because obviously there are tons of great players. I mean, not only in the state of South Carolina, but in the United States and also in the country. I mean, there are a ton of great foreign players as well. How do you break up your focus between the American players and the foreign players, and just local players as well overall?
Well, I think you have you've obviously known Matt Neesmith for a while if you're from that area. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
he's a great example of someone who everyone in the country wanted him. He's number one ranked player, and but he was number one ranked player in the country in 2012. But we have such a hotbed in general. We're a lot like baseball in that the Southeast and overall it really creates a lot of talent, not just in South Carolina, but Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia. We have players from Tennessee. The the other thing is that with men's golf, you're seeing a lot more, especially on the mid-major level. You're seeing a lot more foreign players. You see it in women's golf. Golf is a worldwide sport now, and the talent at the junior level is you can search far and wide. We're very fortunate in that we call it we have a little bit of Palmetto pride here. If we're going to start, we're going to try to search out and find all the South Carolina players we can first, and that's the priority. But we've had players from California, from Sean Kelly, who was a great player for us, is on the web now. He was from Staten Island, New York. So it's just a lot of times with the recruiting, you try to get out and get the brand out there, make sure people know. I went to recruit in Texas a few years ago, and they didn't even recognize the logo. But I was trying to explain what the Block C was. But you try to do as much of that as you can, but at the same time, there has to be a good mix of you want the player and they want to be here too. I mean, it's that's with every sport, I'm sure, but especially with golf, it's a very small, intimate group of players and coaches, and you got to really know what you're bringing in, the character of the kid and the family, and then hope for the best.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. 100%. It's funny. I was watching Oklahoma State won the national championship. I think they beat Alabama, I believe, to win the national title in college golf this year. But, it's no secret you've had a ton of success as well. I was reading off some of the statistics. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but just from the Gamecocks online website, I mean, 12 years as head coach, Gamecocks have won 21 tournament titles, winning as coach in school history, 11 of 14 best single round team scores are under your tutelage. 8 of the school's all-time top 10 players for lowest scoring average. The accolades go on and on. Talk about what's kind of been, your key to success, for your team specifically, and then what do you think separates maybe the best team in the country or the team that wins the national title versus a team that maybe is just left on the outside looking in?
Well, in our sport, well, let me first of all say that when I came to here to coach in 2006, I really had no idea what I was doing. I was a teaching pro, and I was a pretty good golf instructor, but I wasn't much of a golf coach. And I had a great group of kids my first year. Mark Anderson being the primary one, and Mark Silvers, George Bryan the fourth. Some of those guys that let me. Wesley Bryan was one of them that was with us early on, and they really let me learn a lot. I'm still learning a lot about coaching, but um, the foundation of the program was built on growing the kids and having a good time, relishing the opportunity to win an event. Trying to get in contention on the back nine and have that opportunity to close out a tournament. That's the goal for every event. And I've been fortunate enough to have some kids, some teams really buy into that. I would say in terms of the difference between Oklahoma State sometimes and like a team like us this year, which was sort of a borderline top 25, top 30 or 40 team, was that high score that you count, the fourth or fifth man. It's really hard in our sport when you're playing five guys counting four scores. You better have five players that can win a golf tournament individually if you want to compete for a national championship. That's really the key. The team that we had 2 years ago that made match play out in Oregon, all five of my guys could win any golf tournament we played in. And that kind of depth, it really shows up as you get toward the final part of our season at SECs and at the NCAA championship. And Oklahoma State was proof of that this year. I think they won 8 or 9 times. They were one of the best teams we saw all year, obviously. And they just, any one of their guys could win a tournament. And that's what it takes.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a Gamecock that I definitely want to talk about. One of your first Gamecocks, you said Wesley Bryan, who, I would say has probably been one of the most well-known Gamecocks, obviously on the PGA Tour, has played in a ton of different events, has done fairly well, has a PGA Tour win at the RBC Heritage in 2017. I'm sure it's been an absolute blast for you kind of watching him, move up throughout the ranks and get to where he is now today. Talk about, what the biggest progression you've seen from his game is from when he was in college to now being a professional.
Well, he always had just a freaky short game, and he and his brother George the Fourth, they were amazing to watch in college. I mean, they were just incredible workers, always grinding on their games and playing games with their wedges. It was always, that was something Wesley always had. But I think what he's learned to do is manage his game, and what I've seen, I had a chance to go up to him last year at Quail Hollow at the PGA Championship, and he's just so much more mature as a player. I mean, I think I think he would probably tell you his ball striking still needs to get a little bit better or more consistent. But when he does strike the ball, when he just gets the driver and the tee ball out in front of him, there's nobody better around the greens. One of the best putters I've ever seen. And he has supreme confidence in himself. I've never been around anyone that just, I mean, had that core belief that he was on the right track, always doing the right things. He just was unwavering in that. And I mean, I talk about him all the time to our team. He's it's just been, when you have your guys come, everybody that for the most part comes to our program wants to play on the PGA Tour. And when you have a former player that achieves that goal and not only getting on tour but winning, it's just it's so gratifying as a coach to see one of your players achieve their dreams.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's got to be really, really cool to be a player on the team. Just obviously see that someone that's been through your program and that has again had that kind of success. That's got to be really, really cool as a player and obviously as a coach as well. You talked a little bit about his ball striking. Obviously, something I think he can improve on. We could probably all improve on, but obviously has had some success as a PGA Tour pro with the one win. I think obviously the big goal for anyone on the PGA Tour is to win a major. Talk about what you think maybe he needs to do. You mentioned ball striking, but what do you think he needs to do overall to just kind of take that next step as a PGA Tour pro and possibly, be a major winner?
Well, I think he's from my observation, he's really just learning how to be a PGA professional. You can see he's adjusted his schedule a little bit this year. So he's, after a year out on tour last year, he understands the courses that he likes and where he wants to play. He's um, just found out that they're pregnant. So he's got a little girl on the way, I believe. So he's starting a family. He's maturing into a young man, and he's really, as far as his career goes, the not only is it a big step to get out there, but it's a big step to be comfortable out there and know. I mean, at the end of the day, you're a business person and you're a professional, so you want to play the events where you're comfortable, and then I'm sure that the majors are a big priority for him. But I would think just getting better is the main one, and continuing to improve each year. So uh, the one thing about Wesley that I'm not concerned about is if he gets in contention in a major, he will not be scared to win it. That Joker has got ice in his veins as far as when it comes. He doesn't, what we call, spit the bit. If he's got a chance to win, he's gonna he's gonna get it done. He'll fight you to the bitter end.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and you definitely mentioned something as well. We want to make sure we wish Wesley congratulations. Obviously, him and his wife announcing today they are having a child, a little girl. So we do want to wish them congratulations. One thing I want to ask you about Wesley Bryan, I'm sure you're on Twitter a good bit and kind of follow the PGA Tour. Did you teach him the infamous club drop that he has?
No, no, but
Because it is
I
pretty
was
legendary.
Yeah. No, I was actually better at teaching the club throw. We had a tomahawk and the helicopter. I was always more of a promoter of the helicopter because I felt like you weren't going to break the club if you threw it in a horizontal fashion. But no, I didn't have anything to do with the club drop. I actually was a very big supporter of Taco Bell when he was here. He and I were one of the few that loved it on that team that liked the Taco Bell run. But he's been a lot of fun to watch on social media. You go back to he and George doing their trick shots and the Bryan
Mm-hmm.
brothers and all that. That was right up their alley. So really proud of him, and excited about his future.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm a huge fan of Taco Bell myself, so I really do appreciate the Taco Bell belt that he has, and obviously the club drop where he holds the finish is definitely one that has made its rounds on social media a good bit. That's one that always pops
Yeah.
up. Last question, and we'll get you out of here, Coach. Obviously we talked about Wesley Bryan, someone that I think just golf fans in general are going to know. If you had to pick, I guess, one Gamecock golfer, there are obviously a ton throughout the ranks as far as web.com. E. Smith, who's from my hometown, absolutely fantastic golfer. Who is the one guy that you feel like, not to trying to get you to single anybody out, but who's the one guy that you feel like could be the next guy kind of up and coming that could be where Wesley Bryan is, say, in the next year or two?
Well, I think you have to look at Matt Neesmith. I mean, to me, he's the most talented player I've had come through the program as far as a complete game. I mean, he really had no weaknesses. Even as one of the first times I watched him play as a 13 or 14-year-old or an eighth grader, I know. I think Matt's playing in Canada and has one of those kind of games that I think, he's starting to believe himself a little bit more. I think we've had quite a player come through that, it's like picking your favorite child. It's really hard to do, but Matt's one of those that just, I mean, always seemed to be able to um, hit the shot when he needed to hit it, play very smart, was very comfortable when he was near the lead as well, and just really had no weaknesses in his game. So hopefully he can get his card this year, and we can start seeing him on TV.
Yeah, would absolutely love to see that. Obviously, for the Gamecocks and also for North Augusta, would be fantastic to see him make it. Well, Coach, again, that's going to be pretty much all we have. I will say, last thing, I'll put my golf game on blast here for just a second. As you know, I went down to Columbia this past weekend, played Cobblestone. Have to say, played pretty well the front nine. I think we started on the Garnet, was a 1 over through 9, and the Black just kind of humbled me a little bit. So finished up 77. So I need to go back and redeem myself, but hopefully we'll be able to do that. But again, we appreciate you coming on. Would love to have you back on. It was an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you for taking the time.
Oh yeah, anytime. And hit me up and maybe I can help you out. We'll figure out what's going on with your game, get you better.
Yeah. I could use the lesson. So I'm never had a lesson, so I'm open to it. So, but again, he's Bill McDonald, Gamecocks men's golf coach. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, check us out on iTunes, the Stitcher app, wherever you consume your podcasts. Also on all our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and armchairamericans.com. You know where to find us. So again, Coach McDonald, appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay tuned for another episode this week. We'll actually have Rob Profit coming on the show as well to talk a little Gamecock football. Until then, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will catch you next time.